This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic. And this week, I'm very excited because we're talking about something that I've wanted to talk about for a while, which is Cartoon Network's The Venture Brothers.
Yeah, about that. That was the plan, but then, I kind of got started, playing Fallout 4 again. So let's try this one on for size instead. This week we're talking about Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and playability.
Yes, we are.
And what is playability? So, yeah, it kind of happened again. It's like a yearly thing. I think around November, my body just remembers November 2015, and it's like, you should play Fallout.
Right? Yeah.
The way normal people have, normal women have, a maternal clock. My body is like Fallout time.
It's like a bird's migratory pattern.
Yeah.
You just naturally return to Fallout 4.
Because your body just kind of, I just remember it. I remember November 2015. And God, it has already been 3 years, by the way.
And it's like there's a mountain that used to be there, but now you've modded it out, but you still naturally go around the mountain that should be there.
Yeah. God, it's so true. It's so shameful. Just the weird urge always comes back, and boy, is 2018 18 years long, because 2015 was only 3 years ago, and I feel like I was a completely different person in 2015. I don't know who I am anymore.
Well, the weird thing to think about is Fallout 4 was our first episode, so that means you and I have been playing Fallout 4 before we started doing this podcast.
Yes, because we started the Fallout 4. The first episode of this podcast was technically about Nuka World and Far Harbor. And talking about our feelings about Fallout 4 in general, but more specifically about Far Harbor. So it's interesting that we really have been playing Fallout 4 for longer than we've been doing the Gorge.
It's very weird.
And it will never go... What was it you were texting me the other day? Because I had to go fire up my old PS4 save to go, find... I wanted to remake my PS4 character on my PC. So I had to go fire up the PS4 to find, face settings, the nose type, the eyes type, stuff like that. I went and booted it up, and I checked how many days I had been playing, and, oh god, I wish I had saved... I still have those texts, but they are a little bit up there, but I said something like... God, what did you say? You were like, how much is it? I was like, you don't want to know. And you said, what'd you say, 500? I'm like, worse.
Yeah.
And your immediate response to me was, in all caps, how much is it? The answer is we're pushing the 800 mark at this point, maybe more.
Which is a lot of time.
For what is not, not a great game, a good game.
For what you and I have spent 3 entire episodes already talking about how it's not actually that great of a game.
It's not that great of a video game, and yet we keep returning to it, and that is kind of really, we talk a little bit about 76, because, what does 76 not have? I mean, the answer is obvious. What 76 doesn't have versus what Fallout 4 has, even though they are made on the same engine, and 76 is basically just a soulless cash grab built off of Fallout 4's back. But what does 76 not have that Fallout 4 does have, and other games have it too? Which is a concept you and I were talking about a few days ago, and we thought, we'll talk about it on the Christmas episode, but I thought it would be more interesting to kind of talk about it, maybe as more of a deep dive, or kind of think of some good examples.
Right.
Of something I've called playability or replayability. And I know playability usually means when you say, well, a game is playable, you're kind of implying it is free of bugs and can be played. Like
Right.
Sonic 06 and The Quiet Man are kind of unplayable. But when I say something has good playability, it's kind of like mouthfeel when it comes to food.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like, sometimes food just has good mouthfeel. Even if maybe it doesn't, like, taste the greatest. Like, Doritos. Doritos are not, like, high-tier food, but there's something about them. Taco Bell has that kind of sense, too.
Another good word for this is, like, the junk, like, you've used this, the junk food of games.
Yeah, junk food, for sure. Go ahead.
But, like, I think, like, playability is a bit more of a, like, nicer way of putting it.
And then calling it trash?
Yeah. Than saying, like, boy, I love this garbage food I can shovel in my mouth. It's like...
And it's terrible for me.
Boy, I really enjoy playing this game. That doesn't necessarily mean the game is good, but it has a certain quality to it that is kind of hard to, like, define in, like, a broad sense, but it's kind of more of an individual game thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've been trying to parse out a lot with regards to Fallout 4, and to other, like, not great you can have a great video game that is highly playable. I know you cited, like, Chrono Cross when we were, not Chrono Cross, but Chrono Trigger. You can have you can have a good game that is still highly playable.
Right.
But there is a certain kind of type of just okay game that really hits that high degree of playability. And I have been trying for so long to parse out what it is in regards to things like Fallout, and any of the Fallouts. I mean, New Vegas has it too, even though New Vegas is a genuinely good game. But, like, 3 has it, 4 has it, other games of its genre kind of have it. Like, Fable is another game that I've kind of always said has, like, a high degree of playability. I was thinking of, like, Far Cry 4, and, like, all of the Far Cries, really, which are not great video games, but are highly playable, you know?
Right, and there's even a lot of, like, super good games that don't have good playability.
Yeah, that is a weird thing, absolutely.
Like, I was thinking about, like, games we've played recently, and I would say that something like Nier Automata doesn't have good playability.
That is the first one I would have said, too.
Right?
And I don't know... And here's the thing. Nier Automata and fucking Fable 2 are, in a lot of ways, very similar games. They are open-world, third-person action RPGs, right?
Right.
So, you can take side quests, there's a main quest, and Nier obviously plays a whole hell of a lot better than Fable, which has never played well, ever, and never will. But, so what is it that makes, like, Nier, in our minds, not have playability? It's a game you don't really, like, just randomly go, like, oh, I guess I'll just go pick up Nier. You kind of have to devote yourself to sitting down and playing it, even though it's, like, a truly great video game. It's probably one of my favorite games of all time, I've said before. What's the difference?
Yeah, and that's kind of like what the ultimate, like, discussion of this episode is like, what's the difference between what makes something what's good playability compared to bad playability?
Right.
And, like, for going off of, just to start off with Fallout 4 and 76,
yep.
Like, I think the big difference between the two of them is that, like, yeah, on concept, an MMO based on Fallout's engine should be a slam dunk, you know? Like, oh, shit,
yeah,
what if you could just dive in and play Fallout with your friends, you know?
Yeah, of course, that's the thing. You and I have kind of bemoaned Fallout 4 not having, like, some kind of drop-in, drop-out co-op.
Yeah.
Like Far Cry. Like, that, on paper, is a great idea. You should just be able to jump into your friend's game and, like, tool around with them for a while.
But I think the difference between that is that, like, for one thing, like, Fallout 76 didn't implement the multiplayer the way that you would think a Fallout game should.
Right.
It's there's no push to talk, there's no private servers.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything is like location based, and it's like that's not the reason you would want to play a multiplayer Fallout game. It doesn't have that good like interactive loop for missions and stuff that you would expect from a real like multiplayer experience. Like you don't really, when you were thinking about like I want to play co-op, I want to play a multiplayer Fallout, like you don't really think about like PvP necessarily. It's more think of like co-op, like building something together. Right, yeah.
And the problem with 76 is the little things. It's the idea of like your camp instead of your settlements. You have a camp instead, but that camp can be like you can come back to your camp and it'll be packed up and gone because somebody else while you were gone from that server has taken that spot, and so now you have to pick your stuff up and move it again. But because 76 is also like a huge buggy piece of shit, it's really actually hard to move your settlements, so you don't really have a sense of like permanence. Like part of the fun of the base building in 4 is that it is a permanent location and you are getting kind of a satisfaction of watching something grow. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Like you're building this location and this is like your hub now, and you can always go back to your hub and pick up your gear and swap out your companions and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what you would want from a multiplayer Fallout 4 experience, is to have like an area that is designated for like a place for you and your friends, kind of Minecraft, you know?
Yeah.
A place where you and your friends can sit around and goof off and build, and then you go out into the world and you go on adventures to find like more building materials or more cool new weapons, or you just go out to like fight fucking monsters, and then you can always return to your base when you're done to heal up and suit up and build a little bit more. And that's the gameplay loop. Joseph Anderson is a YouTuber who I've referenced a few times in the past. That is literally what he stated to be Fallout 4's core gameplay loop: is you explore a place, you kill everything in the place, you loot the place so that you can use that for crafting, and then you do it all over again. Like, that's Fallout 4's core gameplay loop, you know?
Right. And that's, like, it feels good and it's rewarding to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't feel the same in 76 because you're not going back to a central hub. You're on the go constantly. Yeah,
and there's just a sense of, when you look at 76, there's a sense of emptiness that, I mean, this map is like, what, twice as big as Fallout 4's?
Yeah.
Something like that? Is that what, what do we say, Fraud Coward? Fraud Coward said at E3, is that the map is like twice, 3 times as big as Fallout 4's. And Fallout 4's map is like almost too big. You're kind of approaching that point of too bigness where there's a lot of empty space between like stuff to do. But it's not like overwhelmingly huge. But it seems like 76 is just incredibly empty in comparison. Well, especially because there's no NPCs.
Yeah, it doesn't have any NPCs. It doesn't have anyone walking around that you can talk to. It's all done through holotapes, and it's like, that doesn't mean I care.
Yeah, and it's not that like Fallout 4 has like revolutionarily awesome NPCs.
Right,
like,
of course not.
Let's be real for a second here. Like, I hear a lot of people complaining there's no NPCs, but I mean, like, did you ever talk to an NPC in Fallout 4? They're basically a holotape. But there is still kind of, it's another thing that's hard to give, to kind of vocalize, but just even having NPCs there kind of creates a texture to the world that otherwise just makes it feel super hollow. Like, yeah, fucking Trash Can Carla is like a nothing character, but there is still kind of like a texture there from just having this idea of like fucking Carla's Brahmin getting on the roof in Sanctuary. You know what I mean?
Right. It's even the simple fact that your character addresses her by name establishes like at least the baseline connection to that character, that you're like, oh, that's a character now.
that's a person. It's like a connection. It makes the world feel like a real place. Like, I hate to tell you guys over at Bethesda, but like other players don't make a world feel like a real place, especially with no push to talk, especially when it's all proximity chat.
Right.
And so you can hear someone's like fucking baby screaming in the background,
of course,
or like a dog barking, or like, hey Jimbo, do you want some like fucking Totinos? Like, that's not gonna make me feel like I'm living in a world.
The lore
that just kind of makes
yeah, the illusion is shattered.
Absolutely. As soon as somebody's dog starts barking and there's no dog around, like, you know?
Yeah. When you hear a vacuum running, it's like, all right, well, you know what? We're not really here, are we?
We're not really here. We're not really here. And again, it doesn't help that this game is, like, cartoonishly broken. 76, that is. I mean, Fallout 4 is also fucking broken. But, like, when it's just yourself and it's not getting in the way of you dealing with, like, PvP or exploring with your friends, like, it's cute, you know? Like, Bethesda bugs they're just kind of funny when it's just you on your own, as long as it's not, like, crashing your game. If it's just, like, oh, look, that ghoul is glitching through a wall, that's just kind of funny.
Right.
But in, like, a multiplayer setting, where the combat is kind of, like, the only thing, and somebody falling through a floor and, like, losing connections to the server is, like, a huge fucking hassle, it's not so cute anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
When it's actually hindering the progress of everyone around you, it's like, that's not quite as fun anymore. When you can't...
They're not very cute.
When you can't load a previous save to try again...
Yeah.
It's not quite as, like, adorable that the character kind of just despawned.
Yeah, it's not quite the same degree of enjoyability. And it's all those little things. It's all these little things that come together that create playability. Playability is like that weird, magical something.
I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about, like, what games I would consider to have great playability, what games would not have great playability.
Right.
So I wrote up a quick list of some of them.
That's exciting. I want to hear.
So, first off, like you said, Fallout 4, and going on with open world games, I also think Breath of the Wild has really good playability. And I think...
No,
Wait, what was that?
Oh, I said Breath of the Wild is one I haven't played, so I can't speak authoritatively about it, so I'm going to give this one to you.
Yeah, what I would think about it, and kind of what all of these kind of have in common, is that they're games that I would say you don't have a lot of responsibility in. There's no pressure on the player in certain aspects. There's a challenge, obviously, but it's not like requiring you to put in a lot of effort outside of actually being good at the game.
Right.
For instance, like, as much as I love playing Chrono Cross right now, I would say that game does not have good playability because, like, I have to have a commitment to sit down and play Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
Because it's a very slow-moving game, because it was on the PlayStation 1. And it's a JRPG on the PlayStation 1, which, hey, those don't go quick.
Save points. Hey, do you remember save points in JRPGs? Because, boy.
Not knowing when I'll get to a save point, not knowing if I'll be able to backtrack to one safely, and, you know, not, like, have to go to the entire front of a dungeon, or, like, get stuck in a battle that can take up to 30 minutes to beat.
Right.
Like, that's not good playability, despite it being a good game.
Yeah.
Whereas Fallout 4 or Breath of the Wild, stuff like Super Mario Odyssey, it's just like, oh, I can go in there and crank out a quest and be done. And then I can save, quit out, and be done with that. There's no pressure on me to, like, navigate through an entire area in one go.
Right. Yeah. I understand completely. It's a kind of, like, no pressure, and, like, I think part of it is maybe, like, interactivity?
Like,
if that makes sense?
Like, being able to, like, interact with the world in multitude of ways?
Yeah, kind of like, you're having especially with, like Fallout 4 and Breath of the Wild. Like, I haven't played Breath of the Wild, obviously, but like for Fallout 4, the interactivity comes with all of the weird stuff that's out in the open world. I'm thinking of near the fort. There's that shack where you can just put those air canisters in and you shoot them and they shoot off into the air and explode. And you're like, ah! I love that shack. I found that the other night and I was like, yes! But also, like, the interactivity, of course, of settlement building. But in, like, Breath of the Wild, which doesn't have that same kind of degree of changing your world space, in that way, instead, the interactivity comes with the ways, like, the systems that are in that game. The number of ways you can kind of interact with that world. You know, there's the climbing mechanics. There's all the crazy bullshit you can do with the different tools that are available to you. And that's why people are still playing Breath of the Wild.
Right.
And people are still doing, like, crazy videos of it on the internet, like, years later.
That's why I haven't actually beaten it yet, even though I can easily go in and beat Ganon at any time I want now, but I'm just like, oh, but you know what? I haven't been over here in a while. I should go...
I could go tool around here, yeah.
I kind of want to see what's over that hill over there, and it'll take me, like,
and there's
2 minutes to get to that hill. I should probably...
And then you've lost, like, an hour.
It's like, oh, there's a shrine here. Okay, well, I'll get this shrine. All right, well, you know what? I kind of want to upgrade my armor set. I should see if I can get these lizards to upgrade my armor a little bit more. I can... well, you know what? I guess I can track these lizards. Oh, I was on the way to find them, and here's an enemy camp I can take out and get this treasure chest. I might as well go do that. I mean, my weapons are kind of about to break. I kind of need to restock some weapons, so...
Yeah. It's that degree of interacting and making changes on the world, that even though those are two very different kinds of interacting, the idea is still there, where there's just a lot to do, but not in an overwhelming way.
Right.
Like, it's just, you have a lot of different options of stuff to do. You can go shoot shit in Fallout, you can go build stuff, you can go do some mediocre quests.
Right.
But they still kind of scratch that itch, you know? And then, like you said, in Breath of the Wild, there's so many options. There's shrines, there's Korok seeds, there's enemy encampments, there's the main quest that nobody pays attention to. There's all of these options and just generalized exploration that is what gives a game a degree of playability that maybe other stuff doesn't have.
Like, the playability in there isn't as... or playability there is more intense than it would be in, say, another Zelda game, even.
Yeah. I actually think a game that has that same degree of kind of high playability, and maybe part of it is nostalgia, but I think I'm right when I say that Ocarina of Time has high playability versus, say, Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is like a really good video game, make no mistakes, but Majora's Mask is not that same kind of playable. Where you can just sit around and tool around. Yeah,
it's like I said, it's got the thing where, like, Ocarina or Majora's Mask is a much more, like, high pressure game. Like, you have a set time limit to do your shit.
Yeah, you have to plan out what you're gonna do before you reset the clock.
And again, that's not a bad thing. That's the point of the game, is to put this pressure on you so that you have to figure out what you need to do quickly. You have to think on your feet. You have to figure out what's next and make sure you keep an eye on that clock. And then, but it's not as playable as Ocarina of Time, where you can take as long as you want to get through this stuff.
Yeah, and Ocarina of Time's world is definitely empty in comparison to modern open world games. But I think Ocarina of Time was the first game I ever experienced that playability feeling, where, yeah, it's a little empty, but just the mere act of kind of just tooling around in the world feels good.
Right.
So, but other Zelda games don't really have that, and you would think, like, Twilight Princess is basically Ocarina of Time 2.0, but it doesn't have the same degree, and I couldn't tell you why. I could not tell you why.
You know what I think it is? here's another aspect that kind of like is a general thing, and this general aspect is kind of like manifests in different ways based on different games.
Yeah.
Another like, this isn't like a set list of things that mean playability. It's like, well, playability could mean this in a game, or it could mean this.
Right.
Games that have good playability might also be games that are much bigger than the main part of the game.
Yeah.
Like Ocarina of Time has tons of side quests.
Yeah.
Tons of additional content that you can completely bypass just if you just do the main game.
Right. Yeah.
Same with Breath of the Wild, same with Fallout 4, same with Mario Odyssey. Like, Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and Fallout 4 are good examples of that, where it's like deliberately placed.
It's made to be that way.
Like it's like kind of like how people joke like, oh, you beat endings A and B for Nier. Okay, well, you did the prologue then.
Yeah.
It's like Mario Odyssey. Oh, you beat the main game. Okay, well, you beat Chapter 1. Now go do the rest of the game.
Do all the other stuff. Absolutely.
You did the final Bowser fight. Oh, cool. You got past the intro of the game.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it's that kind of sense of just like doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's...
So, what are the... go ahead.
What were we going to say?
I was going to say, what else is on your list?
Okay, so one of the ones I put on here, this is like kind of the same concepts but a wildly different approach to them, is a lot of fighting games, too, have really good playability.
Yeah.
This, like I said earlier, where it's like games that don't have a lot of pressure. Not all fighting games, because there's a lot of games by ArcSys that aren't Persona or Dragon Ball. A lot of anime fighters, I would say, don't have good playability because of what I said earlier, where it's like the lack of pressure. Mm-hmm. In fighting games, like in games that have good playability, like fighting games that manifests in like, okay, can you pick up a controller and like kind of understand what each button does individually without like a lot of research?
Yeah.
Then yeah, that's why games like Smash Brothers or Dragon Ball FighterZ or Soul Calibur have good playability.
Soul Calibur 6 is like, it's again not one I have played because fighting games aren't my thing. But just watching other people play Soul Calibur 6, like, yeah, it definitely meets the criteria for playability despite
right?
being a fighting game.
And, these are games that also do have, like, a high ceiling, a high skill ceiling. Like, obviously
right.
You can figure out the more intricate systems, but when you're playing a game like Smash or Soul Calibur or Dragon Ball FighterZ is good at this, where it's like, you can pick up what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not like these more complex anime fighters where it's like the intricate systems are the gameplay.
Right. Yeah, anime fighters are a monster.
They're like this whole thing that is like almost impenetrable.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Just every time I've seen people play, like Guilty Gear, I feel like has a lot.
Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, like Under Night in Birth.
Oh God, yeah.
Where it's like I can watch a match of I can watch a fight between like someone playing like games that I have zero experience with, like something like Killer Instinct, the new Killer Instinct, or something where it's like, okay, well I can kind of figure out which buttons they're pressing.
Right.
Like, I can't mimic that, but I kind of figure out what they're doing. I look at something like Under Night, and I'm like, I don't know what anything is anymore.
I don't know.
Why does this girl have 5 bars underneath her health bar, and this guy has, like, a bullet counter?
Oh my God.
I don't know. So stuff like Under Night in Birth or like Guilty Gear or Blaze, well, I look at that and I'm like, I don't know what anything is, and then it's like, but I can look at like FighterZ or Soul Calibur or Smash Brothers and be like, okay, well, I can get what's going on with that.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
They have good playability because, for one thing, also I think the other thing is the way they're presented. Like Soul Calibur, part of the joy of 6 is that the creative character is so in depth that you can make anyone basically.
Right.
And so, like, even if you're not
Yeah.
into Soul Calibur, if you bring a copy of it over to your friend's house with, like, a bunch of, like, downloaded characters onto it,
Right.
they can still have fun, like, having the Power Rangers fight Deadpool. You know?
Right. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So they have this good playability because, like, anyone, it's more of a party thing. It's also the reason why stuff like Mario Party or Mario Kart has really good playability, you know?
Yeah, and there's not a lot of systems involved in Mario Kart versus like Forza, I guess.
Right,
Like
yeah.
Forza isn't really a party game. It's not like a game you just, I mean, obviously people play that over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like playability is also very subjective. I
Right,
guess.
yeah.
But at the same time, like, if we're talking, like, general, the idea of just replaying a game over and over, then, like, Mario more so, and being able to just pick up and play it, and just play it for, like, a really absurdly long time, even though you maybe don't know what's going on in it all of the time. Mm-hmm. Like, Mario Kart is especially a good example of that, you know?
Right, yeah.
Where I was playing Mario Kart at a party the other night, and I was losing consistently because I'm bad at Mario Kart, and I don't know all of the tricks and stuff the way my friends do. But I was, like, constantly coming in 7th place, and I'm like, I'm having a good time. Let's do another race. I don't care.
Right.
I suck at this, and I'm still having fun.
And that's like the big difference between, like, again, where it's like playability doesn't mean it's a good or bad game. It's not.
Right.
It's not a mark of quality. It's a mark of, like, of a different, like, almost, like, impossible to articulate, like, concept of this game.
Game feel good.
Game feel good.
Bunga.
Game feel good because I get good tune play when get thing.
Buttons feel good press. Make loud sparkly noise. Unga bunga.
Yeah, you know, it's that good feeling of, like, it's other good part of playability is like just what you said, presentation, UI, music. Like, I downloaded a mod for Fallout 4 that changes the location discovery thing to the Breath of the Wild discovery chime, and I'm like, this is so much better.
This is so good. Yeah, absolutely. I understand. Like, just it's so many little things that come together to make, like, just something that is so just fun to just tool around in and just kind of screw around in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, what else you got on that list?
Well, I got let's see. Like I said, like I put. This is the reason why people who aren't us play a lot of MMORPGs or gacha games, because they have this good feedback loop where they can go and do the Radiant quest, or they can go and do the raid, and they can come back and they can get the loot and they can do it again with another group of people, or they can do it by themselves, and it's just like this good approachability to it. And now, MMORPGs are different because, like, a lot of the higher tier guilds will require you to be like, okay, well, you gotta meet up at this time every day or every week, or else you can't play with us.
Right, yeah.
But, you know, if you were just doing it solo, like, it's got this good loop. It's kind of interesting that, like, a game like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV is different than 76 for kind of the same reasons.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like a mark of, like, the quality of those two compared to 76, where it's like, well, the reason why these games are good, it's kind of like we were talking about The Quiet Man, where it's like, you know what this genre is, but you don't know how to implement it correctly.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's basically what the difference between, like, 76 is. And I mean, like, you know, part of the reason that, like, Final Fantasy XIV, for example, is so popular versus I mean, both are kind of, that's a good kind of comparison point, I guess, even though they are two vastly different games, is they're both, like, recognizable franchises, Fallout versus Final Fantasy, but, you know, Final Fantasy has more going on in it than 76 will ever have, no matter how much they patch 76. There's, it's easy to hook up with friends and goof off for a while. There are not nearly the server issues. I mean, yeah, Final Fantasy XIV had to hard reboot itself to make it functional. But you remember that? Remember how bad Final Fantasy XIV was when it first came out? That they had to apologize and then literally made an event out of them nuking the old game?
Yeah, they had to literally blow up the old one and make a brand new one.
Because Final Fantasy XIV was that bad when it came out. Holy shit. But now it's really good because there's a lot to do and it's like a functional video game and it's easy to get together with your friends. There's lots of quests. There's a lot of really interesting like enemy types, and it's you all feel like you're kind of contributing and helping and working together to conquer this thing. Or you can like really easily play Final Fantasy XIV like solo and not feel lonely, whereas you can't do that in Fallout 76.
Right.
You know?
And
like,
that
76, any fun you have with 76 is because you're playing it with your friends.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah. Like, that's like the only thing you can really do is interact with other people and hope maybe you find a group that is good.
Yeah.
Whereas in something like Final Fantasy XIV, where it's like, well, you can set who you want to interact with.
Right, yeah, exactly. And otherwise, and the fact that, like, I don't think Final Fantasy XIV has, like, open PvP everywhere.
Right? No, I don't think so. They're a bit more organized than that.
I think there's just a PvP zone in 14. Now, I don't know for sure because I don't play 14, but I do know that World of Warcraft has PvP zones, or it did. I'm sure some update has happened because World of Warcraft has had, like, 40 updates. But it used to have a PvP zone. I know about that. And, like, 76... has... God, have you heard about how stupid the PvP system in 76 is?
Don't you have to, like, just turn it on?
Okay, so the way it works is when you enter a server, you set it to pacifist mode or not. And pacifist mode basically means that, like, you don't want to do PvP, which is fine. I like the idea of that on paper. But, like, what you can have happen is... So, if somebody wants to instigate PvP with you, they can shoot at you, but it does, like, negligible damage.
Right.
So, you can have somebody constantly shooting at you, and then, like, after you think they've, like, ran out of their ammo or something like that, then you can switch pacifist mode on and instantly turn around and just, like, cap them. Or turn pacifist mode off. And just turn around and, like, cap them without even trying.
Right.
But then they get a bounty on their head, but they also respawn just, like, right near you. They can choose to respawn, like, right next to you instead of it being, like, a big penalty or anything like that.
So
like, the PvP is just broken.
So it doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and because you can see everybody on the map at all times, you can never sneak up on anybody. Like, you can never... Like, let's say there are two people on the map who both have pacifist mode off so that it's PvP whenever they want. Like, you can never sneak up on them because they're always visible on the map. Like,
so
how did you screw this up? How?
It doesn't make
games
any
like Rust have got this, like, nailed down, like, forever ago.
God, that's so stupid.
It's so, and I'm probably explaining it very poorly, but that's just, like, the quick and dirty explanation for how bad, like, the PvP, like, why wouldn't you just, it's obvious they're trying to rip off The Division, and, like, I don't like The Division, but I see the appeal of The Division. The Division just has zones, guys. It just has PvP zones, guys.
Yeah, it just... Like... Just make an area that people can go into and they can shoot each other if they want.
Shoot at each other. Like,
make a pit or something.
Yeah, call it the pit. Like, as a cheeky Fallout 3 reference. And it's just a big hole in the ground. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the place, like, it's a city that got nuked or something. And it's, like, a big fucked up area. And that's where you go to, like... do all of your crazy PvP fighting, and you get, like, bonus XP if you kill somebody in the Dark Zone, but, like, that's what it's called in The Division, by the way. It's called the Dark Zone. You know, like, did anybody at Bethesda, like, play
an MMO?
Like a multiplayer, like, shooter of any kind before they made 76? Did anybody play a video game before they made this video game? I need to know.
Did they play any game besides Fallout 4?
Like, I really like Fallout 4, but you can't just kind of, like, do a one-to-one transition and then stick people in it, because, like, it's gonna fuck up. Sorry, guys.
But that's like what we're talking about, is that, like, that's why playability doesn't translate one-to-one between similar games, you know?
Right.
It all boils down to, like, well, both Fallout 4 and 76 are what I would say not great games.
Right.
But because Fallout 4 doesn't have that pressure of having to deal with other people, it doesn't have the constant hiccups that can completely kill your progress, not just like hinder you or like make you roll back to a little bit, like it can fuck up everything.
Right, yeah, absolutely. You can just have a server crash because somebody, you know, started 3 events at the same time. Like,
and they didn't
really,
plan
guys?
For that.
They didn't plan for the fact that people were going to act... Like, what is the point of dedicated servers, Bethesda? Which is why you're not letting us do private servers, dipshits. Like, what is the point of dedicated servers if they're not even going to run?
Yeah, if they're not even going to work properly, then why do it?
Why make such a big kerfuffle about fucking dedicated servers if those dedicated servers don't function? Like... So 3 people fired off 3 fucking nukes. Big damn whoop. Like, you should have had... People are gonna try and grief your video games, guys. You didn't sit down and go, maybe we should stress test the living shit out of these servers before we launch our finger quotes beta, which it wasn't a beta. We both know it was a demo. It was just a demo.
Yeah, you can't lie and say it was a beta because you made a bad game. You don't get to roll that back now.
I mean, you call it a beta, but you put the beta out like a month before the game came out. Like, that's not a beta. That's a demo.
It doesn't work that way.
You don't have nearly enough time to implement any kind of changes. I mean, they put out a day 1 patch that basically did nothing. It was a 46 gigabyte patch that changed next to nothing and fixed almost nothing. Like, yeah, this is partly like a rag on Fallout 76 Power Hour. It's fine.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, like, there's
a point.
Yeah, the reason we're doing this topic is to talk about it now, and, like, it's a good example of what not to do.
Yeah, of how to take, like, a game that has, like, you know, a good ability to play it and replay it and just have a good time screwing around in a big, empty, open world. And you're having fun with it, so why didn't it translate to 76? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and here's why, like we've just said for the last 40 minutes.
Right, and, you know, a lot of that boils down to, like, there's too much pressure, there's too much, like, worry, dread about what might happen next.
Yeah, you don't have a sense that you're making any impact on the world, like, at all. Like, your bases can be packed up. Eventually, if you nuke an area, it'll eventually get better. You know, like, you can roll that back. It's just kind of like... So you don't feel like you're making an impact or a change on the world. There's no NPCs, there's no companions, there's none of the usual stuff that kind of gives Fallout 4 its sense of, like, I need to keep playing. The stuff that makes, like, Breath of the Wild, I need to keep playing.
Like, it's kind of like playability is also kind of the thing where it's like it feels welcoming as a player. Like, you, the player, feel welcome into this world,
absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, that is a good point to make, is the sense of just being comfortable in the world.
Right, and whether that's, you know, something, like, whether or not that's what that translates to kind of changes per game.
Right, of course.
Like,
yeah.
Fallout 4, you feel welcome because, like, the world is kind of static without your influence, so, like, only you can change things, and
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to worry about the game when you're leaving it. Like, Breath of the Wild feels really welcome because it offers a lot of encouraging, like, exploration. Like, Mario Odyssey does the same thing, where, like, you are encouraged to use your abilities however you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, again, fighting games, Mario Party, Mario Kart, they're all these... Those manifest more as being, like, very simple mechanics.
Yeah.
That, like, that encourage, like, a lot of people to play at once, and, you know, the interactivity with your close friends that are nearby you.
Yeah, I guess maybe part of what influences the idea that a game is very playable is the concept of easy to pick up, difficult to master. I mean, that's obviously not just it, but I feel like the idea of it's just easy to pick up and get going is part of it.
That's another element of it, for sure.
Yeah, like, you know, like Breath of the Wild, the only really mandatory stuff that you have to do is that opening section on the Great Plateau. And then everything else is just kind of like, go wild, have fun.
It's up to you how you want to approach it, whenever you want to get to it.
Right, yeah. That's definitely part of it. So
yeah.
And it's the same way like Odyssey. It's just go kind of screw around, pick things up, get some moons.
Right. And then, you know, this is also what leads into stuff that has, like... That's kind of like how the game world does it. Like, the other thing that has, like, a really major thing for playability is the simple fact of being able to pick it up and put it down whenever you're able to. Which is why you and I constantly say every JRPG needs to be on a handheld. Every
JRPG should be on a handheld. I'm playing DQ11 slowly, because, again, the Fallout 4 thing kind of happened. But, like, Dragon Quest XI would be instantly and infinitely a better video game if I could play it on the Switch.
Because then you can put it to sleep and not have to worry about, like, trying to track down a save point before you turn it off for the day.
Right. I mean, Dragon Quest XI is very generous with its save pointing. Like, there's basically one, if not in every screen, then every other screen, like every other map screen kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's, like, super generous with its checkpointing. And it also has an autosave system. But at the same time, like the grind that is inherent in JRPGs especially, lends itself so well to a handheld that it's almost like, why would you make like an old-fashioned JRPG, like a turn-based JRPG with level grinding? I'm not talking like an action RPG like Nier. It almost feels like it should just go on a handheld. Just put it on the Switch. Don't even fool with the PS4. Just put it on the Switch.
It's kind of the difference mechanically between, like, say, Pokemon or vanilla Persona 4.
Right.
Where it's like, there is a inherent grind in Persona games that doesn't exist in a game like Pokemon. And, like... There are a lot of steps you need to take to progress in a Persona game compared to a Pokemon.
Right, yeah. And part of the Pokemon thing is that you can just kind of, like, pick it up and play it whenever. Yeah. Even before you had the ability to put a system to sleep, Pokemon lets you save anywhere.
Right.
So you can just turn your Game Boy on and play for a little bit and then turn your Game Boy off, you know?
Yeah, and then... Lo and behold, why do you think we say the Golden is the best version of Persona 4? Because it's on the Vita, it's on a handheld.
Yeah, and, like, the save system is more generous, and you can just turn it on and off whenever you want, so you can kind of, like, screw around in dungeons more easily. It's like, sticky damn, you're instantly... Video games become more enjoyable to play if I can take them anywhere. Not all of them, but a high percentage of them.
Yeah, a very big number of games just feel better to play when I'm not pressured to, like, find the time to play them.
Set up the I mean, like, God love it. I do love having moddable Fallout, but, like... You gotta go to the desktop and get Mod Organizer going, and oh, God help you if there's something wrong with that load order. Holy shit. God forbid anything go wrong, and yet here I am, still just like, trying to, I don't know. It's such a case by case thing.
Right, and because again, like we're saying, like all these, like this thing makes good playability, but also Fallout 4 has good playability for all these other reasons. It's such a case by case thing, and each example we're giving has like a dozen permutations of it, you know?
Yeah. There's always a caveat.
Yeah, there's always just this weird, it literally, like, we're trying our hardest to talk about it, but it literally is this, like, intangible element that you just kind of know exists, you know?
You know it when you feel it. Like, everybody has a different game that they can kind of just play until eternity. Like, and this is a weird thing. Skyrim, right?
Right.
I liked Skyrim well enough. Skyrim is not playable the way that Fallout 4 is.
Right, I can get behind that. I think, like...
Now try to parse that shit out, because
like,
I still haven't.
I think... I don't know. I don't know what... Like, again, it's hard to say what the difference is, but it's like, I kind of feel like Skyrim, like, doesn't have the accessibility because it's got way more stats going on in it than Fallout 4 does.
Right.
But like even then, like the stats kind of don't really matter because you're not given a limitation of how much you can level up. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't give you the good feeling in the back of your brain.
And of course, again, this is what we say when we say, like, really case by case, because there are other people who have put, like, 1,000 hours into Skyrim, and I don't understand why Skyrim, and maybe it's, like, half, like, the setting of Fallout appeals to me more than the setting of Skyrim, which is weird, because I like fantasy games, like, a lot, but I don't know, that's just kind of... I don't know. This is what we mean when we say, like, it's a really hard thing to nail down. We are trying, damn it. We've been talking for almost an hour now. And I think we're getting there.
We're making progress.
We're making strides. But for me, Skyrim is not the same level. Oblivion is not... I mean, like, Oblivion and Morrowind... You haven't played Morrowind, have you?
No.
Morrowind is insufferable to try and play in 2018, despite the fact that it has better quests and basically better everything. Because combat system based on a dice roll. I'm really glad that fucking died. Holy shit. Oh my god. I've never actually played Knights of the Old Republic. I know, like, I feel like that's like a video game crime. But I've never played Knights of the Old Republic because the first time I ever booted it up and realized that your combat system is based on a dice roll, I had horrible Nom-esque flashbacks to the fucking bat enemy things in Morrowind and just turned the game off. I was like, no, never again.
Not doing that. Nope.
Not doing that. Yeah, never again. But, you know, Morrowind even has, like, a weird... Maybe because Morrowind is so fucking weird in comparison to the generic fantasy of, like, Oblivion and Skyrim. But I put way more time into Morrowind as a kid than I've ever put into any other Elder Scrolls game. So that's another aspect, too, is, like, the appeal of the actual, like, game setting.
That's also, like, a really big thing about it, and that's why one of the games I have on the list here is Spider-Man for me.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? Like, guess what? It feels good to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, I would put that above, like, even, like, Arkham. The Arkham games they still have a really high level of playability, especially when you get to, like, City and Night. Mm-hmm. But, like... You know, I enjoy being Spider-Man. I enjoy being in that world, and so I can just be in that world and be satisfied with that.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of these games are open-world games. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but right. Open-world games do certainly have, like, a high degree of it. Because
they're a really good vehicle for that small... Like, the thing where, like we mentioned earlier, where it's like the game is bigger than the main game, where it's like... Mm-hmm. A game that has this sort of... That's kind of covers the span of, like, a great long epic journey quest, or these really small repeating events that you can always find if you look hard enough.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's that sense of putzing, I guess, where you can just kind of, you can fire the game up and have something to do, even if it's something small, like upgrade a settlement, or go find like an event of something to do in Spider-Man, or a shrine in Breath of the Wild. It's these games that lend themselves very well to like kind of puttering around and being done quickly, or you can just pour hours into it.
And the other nice thing about these kinds of things, and when they're done right, is that when you are just kind of puttering around, you still feel like whatever you've done is ultimately helping you progress to accomplishing whatever the main goal is, you know?
Right, yeah, absolutely,
like,
yeah.
If you just spend your time building your settlement, or you spend your time just grinding for loot, where it's like, okay, well, I can use all this stuff later when I finally get back to doing the real challenge, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And set it, and to kind of go back to the point we made when we got on Spider-Man, is setting does matter. In a way that is like probably the most subjective thing about a game is the appeal of the setting itself. Skyrim's setting doesn't appeal to me in the same way that Morrowind and Fallout do. Because just, you know, for Fallout it's post-apocalyptic Boston is just instantly compelling to me. But you play Skyrim and it's just pine trees for days.
Yeah, it's pine trees and mountains.
Sometimes a mountain and a river. You know, like, that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes you have, like, a cool city, but they're not, like, really that interesting. I mean, at least they tried in Skyrim versus Fallout, which only has, like, 2. It's not a perfect video game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's this appeal of being in that world.
Yeah.
You know?
That like, well, these character designs are really good, or this setting is really cool, or I like sci-fi, or I like fantasy, or I like horror or whatever, where it's like, yeah, well, I want to be in that world. And just being there is enough to grab your interest for it, you know?
Yeah, just being there and just kind of walking around and hanging out feels good. Mm-hmm. Walking around, like swinging around in Spider-Man, I'm sure feels real good.
Feels real damn good.
Feels real good. Best web swinging. You know, that's part of it, is just the very act of existing inside the video game feels good. Which is absolutely 100% the most nebulous thing we've said. Because, boy, that is a person-to-person thing.
Yeah, not only is it person-to-person, it's also game-to-game. Like, this is the most subjective it could possibly be.
Yeah, you feel good being in that world. Mm-hmm. Sure, okay.
What does that mean? Well, it depends on what games you like, what kind of genre you like.
What kind of person are you? Like, what kind of settings appeal to you? Do you like really dense settings? Do you like really sparse settings? And even then, like, I don't like Skyrim, but I love Horizon.
Right.
But... so what is it there? Like, Horizon is another open world. We gotta get other games on this list that are open world. We've got other things, but I guess open world is definitely part of it. These games are all meant to be, like, you know, little feedback loop, like, boxes. But I guess for Horizon versus, like, Skyrim is that Horizon has fun combat, and Skyrim does not.
Skyrim has very simple combat.
Bad combat. Combat bad in Skyrim. At least, like, Fallout has the decency to have, like, pretty decent gunplay. And, you know, Horizon gives you so many options, and just, like, running around killing machines feels good. Like I said, if Horizon 2 has some sort of base building mechanic, you can basically kiss my ass goodbye.
Yeah, it's done. We're done. Like,
we're done. That's it. Gorge is over, because it's all I'll play for the rest of my life. Because, like, yeah, that's the only thing I feel like Horizon was really missing to, like, truly grab me. Although I can replay the hell out of some Horizon, it still doesn't grab the way other games of its type have. Fable is a game I've talked about a lot on this podcast for being a pretty mediocre series. I put an absurd number of hours into Fable 2 as like a teenager, and it all kind of came back to this open world. You have an effect on the world. The setting appealed. It kind of it checked all the right boxes, and it is very similar to Horizon, but again, that worser combat. Mm-hmm. But it's still it had the same concept. And, like, so for Horizon, you're like, yeah, you're killing machines, but you don't have the same effect on the world that other games do. Which is why, despite my liking Horizon, and I do think it's more playable than, say, Skyrim for myself, it still doesn't hold the same appeal as other potentially worse video games.
Like, while Horizon does have good playability, it's not a sterling example of it the way I would say something like Breath of the Wild or Odyssey is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So if we're gonna branch off of like focusing on these big open world games, I can talk a bit more about like stuff like Smash Brothers or Fighter Z, where it's like, well, the setting is the appeal of these. The fact that Fighter Z is a Dragon Ball based game is a huge reason why it's so popular. Why people keep going back to it is because there's all these familiar characters. And hell, you know what? Xenoverse 2, you and I spent a lot of time on Xenoverse 2, and has some hella good playability.
Yeah, even though Xenoverse 2 is pretty jank, like like it's a functional video game and it's really fun, but it's super broken. Like, there is no balance in that game whatsoever. Once you find like a really broken build, you can just kind of snap it over your knee like Batman's back. Mm-hmm. But like, it has a good gameplay loop. It's just, it feels good to button press feel good, unga bunga.
Right.
And it's not an open world game. It has a hub. And it's kind of a Fallout 76.
I mean, a little bit, but not really.
But not really, but this idea still of, like, you can play it single player and have a really good time, or you can play it multiplayer and have an even better time. Holy shit, is Xenoverse multiplayer really fun.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a blast. And but both experiences are equally fun. Like, you can have a good time with Xenoverse just playing by yourself and goofing off and doing parallel quests and doing the main quest and doing DLC. And, if you're, like, a good player, which I'm not, but, it's fine, you can do, like, online versus combat. So it has PvP, it has, like, all the same things they were kind of aiming to do with Fallout, but, like, not at the same time.
Yeah, and... But, like, it's different because 76
wildly different.
Is, like, poorly made, whereas Xenoverse is not, and it feels good to play because you are doing the Dragon Ball thing from your childhood, and
Goku is your friend.
And Goku is your friend and tells you you're doing a good job.
And he'll teach you how to do a Kamehameha.
Yeah, so it feels good because of those, because like we said, again, it's inviting to the player. What does that mean in this game? Well, in this game it means that, like, Yamcha and Krillin are telling you you're doing a good job, and Piccolo is impressed with you. You can make friends with Captain Ginyu if you want. That's what that means in this game.
And god damn it, that is so fucking appealing.
Yeah.
Like, that is what gives it its fun. And you can just keep goofing off, too. It is, the amount of content in Xenoverse 2 is truly absurd. Like, when Fighters came out, I thought for sure that game was gonna die.
Oh, yeah. I was like, okay, well, this, like, a game that requires a lot of skill that has an art style that looks like this?
Yeah.
Like, Xenoverse is gonna die forever. But no, it's, just keep putting out content for it.
they're putting out another DLC pack for it. Like, the post-game support is just fantastic, which is a whole other, like, can of bees. But, like, there's just so much to do, and the feedback loop is satisfying, and it's another one of those games that you can pick up and just kind of play for a little bit, and then put it down and go do something else. And, you can just as easily put 20 minutes into Xenoverse 2 as you can put, like, 3 hours into Xenoverse 2.
Right, like in one sitting.
In one sitting, yeah. Yeah. You can go do, like, a handful of PQs and pick up some TP medals and just kind of goof off. Or you can go do raids, you can go do the DLC stuff, you can go do the main quest, you can go do those god-awful Namek missions if you really feel compelled to. I never do.
Oh my god. Yeah, Ginyu's house or Guru's house can just kind of fall apart for all I care.
Guru can get fucked for all I care. But, there's so many options, and the appeal is the setting in that case, and the goofing off aspect is there. The sense of just kind of being able to screw around and putz.
Right.
It's a putzing game. It's a good game for putzing. I love me a putzing game.
And that's, the same thing with, like, Fighter Z, where it's, like, the appeal of that one is, again, it's the setting, the characters, and it's the fact that even if you don't play fighting games, well, you know who these characters are, so you can still pick them and kind of press the buttons to make them do things.
Yeah, that's a good party game. I played Fighter Z with you and your friends, and it's fun. It's just kind of like a fun, good time, party game, and that's part of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of the thing you see with a lot of these other games, with, like, especially talking about Smash Bros. Ultimate's coming out soon, where it's like you see a lot of these other, like, Smash clones that are coming out, like, on Steam and stuff, like these games with, like, it's the same concept where it's deal enough damage to knock the player off the stage, but they don't get the grasp, they don't get the good tingly in the back of your brain that Smash does, because Smash is Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog and Solid Snake and Bayonetta. And Cloud is there, despite Square Enix's best efforts. They still got Cloud
in. Despite all of their attempts to keep him out.
Did you hear that Cloud might not even be in the story mode?
Yes! In like the World of Light mode, they just won't even let Cloud be like, look, leave Cloud alone. He's got depression. Let him hang out with Mario, for fuck's sake.
He's only got, like, 2 spirits in it, and they're both just him? Like, come on!
Oh, come on, Square Enix! Let him hang out with everybody else. What's your problem? I mean, among all of your other multitude of problems, Jesus Christ. Did you hear about the thing with Amazon? By the way, this is like a total...
Yeah, where it's like, hey, we have a trailer! Oh, no.
No, we don't. Oh, yeah, boy. What the fuck is going on over there? That's another podcast.
Yeah, that is. But,
that's a whole other podcast. Oh, shit.
But, like, that's it's part of playability is also, like, the appealing of the setting and the characters and all that, and it's like that's why these mascot fighters are really good, is because these characters and they're fun to see them interact.
Unless it's PlayStation All-Stars, in which nobody gives a shit.
But, like, no one cared because no one cared about those characters, because no one... when you can't get actual Solid Snake and you can't get the good Dante...
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay.
But... So there's a few other things I want to talk about before we wrap up, though, because there's
hit me! No, I could do this all night, baby.
Speaking of Square Enix and speaking of playability, I've been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts Unchained Kai.
Right? Oh boy, gotcha games.
Gotcha games are I don't know, because I didn't play Fate Go, like, at all.
Right.
But, like, especially for Kingdom Hearts for Unchained, where it's like, part of the other feel-good playability thing is watch the numbers go up.
Yeah, that's me in Persona.
Right? But, like, that's like legitimately a thing where it's like, hey, playability is, like I've said a few times, where it's the tingling in the back of your head.
Yeah. You get that good happy feeling because the numbers got real big.
Yeah, because I did the thing, and like when I beat this enemy, a bunch of points exploded out of him.
There were so many numbers that just exploded out of his entire body.
Well,
and it was great.
So you know how in regular Kingdom Hearts when you kill an enemy, like they explode into like money or HP balls or MP balls, you know?
Right.
Well, they do the same thing in Unchained, and like you watch the balls like literally explode out, and then they float up into the counter in the top. Mm-hmm. And that's a good visual effect because the number go up because I got a lot of them at once and they all flew in at once and it played a really good sound effect.
That sounds just a lot like gambling, my man.
I mean, it is, but I don't spend any money on the game. But like,
it's fine.
Part of playability is just the fact that, hey, guess what? This UI, this interface is communicating with the player in a very positive and reinforcing way. And yes, gacha games are gambling, so be careful of that. This is an example of it being used bad.
Yeah. Oh god, and how? Don't ever spend money on your gacha games, kids, please. That's your advice from Aunt Sarah and Uncle Ben.
Spend $0 on it.
I spent $20 once on a gacha game and instantly hated myself for like 2 weeks. I was like, what am I doing spending physical dollars on JPEGs that I could find on Google? Like
what's the point?
Don't do it. I don't know. I really wanted Archer. That's the point. I really just wanted Archer. And guess what? I didn't get him. No. So don't do it, kids. Don't be a whale. Don't spend your money on gacha games. That's my advice to you tonight. And Fate doesn't really have, and I guess that's kind of why I don't, like, I'll go through little bursts where I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna play Fate Go for, like, a bunch, and then I do, and then after a little while, it's kind of like, oh god, this is a lot of grind, and not, like, a fun grind, it's just kind of like a, steamroll through enemies, and it's really not that hard kind of grind. Maybe I'm just playing it wrong, I don't know. But, like, it doesn't kind of have the same appeal. You don't have the numbers go up phenomenon that you get in Cucks. I had to make.
I know you. You know you did. I had to say the word.
I had to say the word. But yeah, like you don't get that appeal, and so it's kind of like, well, no, I don't. And because the gacha in Go is so unreliable and frankly just a giant steaming pile of shit garbage, I don't spend my Saint Quartz, so even rolling the gacha doesn't really appeal to me because it's like, unless it's like rate up, which by the way, rate up is a lie, so whatever, like unless the rate is up on like a specific servant you want, you're not even really rolling your quartz unless you're a whale. You're just playing like a kind of mediocre 2D JRPG, and sometimes you get like a cool servant and it can be a lot of fun, and I know like the later plot lines go completely fucking bonkers, but you can find all of that stuff on the internet.
Yeah, there's no you aren't getting the constant good feeling by playing that one.
Right, yeah, Fate Go is supported like 90% by whales who just really want that JPEG of their waifu. Right. When, again, they could just get that.
Just look it up.
I guess it's the thrill of having that character in your party.
Right, I guess.
I don't know. If they could just, like, let me buy Archer. I finally got Archer, but just because he was, like, a welfare servant. Like, they're like, here, it's the anniversary. You get to have one of these for free. I'm like, thanks. I'm going to take this Archer, and I'm going to be happy. But if I could just, like, buy, like, a servant, I would. And then I would probably play, like, Go a whole hell of a lot more, because then I would spend, like, $10 on the roster I wanted, and I would play with that for a while, and then, like, occasionally roll the gacha and be like, oh, that sounds interesting, maybe I'll change it out. Yeah. But the way it is right now, it's just, like, to me, the gambling aspect of that just does nothing for me. So I guess I'm not a gambling addict, which is nice.
That's a good thing to realize, yeah.
It's a good thing to know about yourself. Mm-hmm. Some people are less lucky than me, like that poor bastard who was in debt to the Yakuza, and is probably dead now.
I don't think he's listening right now.
I don't think that guy is listening. I think he's probably wearing concrete shoes at the bottom of Tokyo Bay. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Don't get $8,000 in debt to the Yakuza just to get your waifu, kids. That's my other advice.
Very specific advice, but still take it.
You should probably still take it. Under no circumstances should you become indebted to the Yakuza to get your waifu. Please. So,
But it's also, like you said, with Persona, where the number go up because you do the fusion
good.
good.
Number go big up. Oh, numbers go big up with Persona. And that's like why I haven't played Persona 5 since I basically did the numbers up so good that I don't need to make the numbers go up anymore. Because I beat P5 like hard, where I did everything. And as soon as that, and I guess that's why like things like Breath of the Wild, these open world games that are just like endless video game, why so many companies are trying to replicate that feeling is because once I had done everything in P5, I dropped P5 like a bad habit. Like
because there's no other tingling to do.
There's no other big number up, you know? Like, I've done it all. I maxed out the compendium, I fought all the bosses, I got to level 99. I've done everything in Persona 5 short of, like, reading all of the books. And really, who's gonna... I mean, I'm sure some maniac out there has done that, but I'm not that maniac. Like, and so once, like, I was out of numbers to make go up, it was like instant. As soon as I finished that, third playthrough? I don't remember how many I did. Literally as soon as I was done with that second or third playthrough, I was like, well, I never have to play Persona 5 ever again.
Yep, just put it back on the shelf and let it sit there forever.
It's gonna sit there forever. And, like... I don't know. I guess that means P5 doesn't have that quality, but P4 does.
And this leads to the next topic I have.
Oh boy!
Which is when you make a game playable by sheer, familiarity with it.
Yeah.
For instance, for me, it's Chrono Trigger and Mega Man X, where it's like, these games have infinite playability for me because I'm so familiar with them that I know when I can start and stop it. Like, I know how long it takes me to get to a certain area. I know what to do in that certain area, and it still gives me the good tingle in the back of my brain because, hey, I'm really good at this.
Yeah, I totally feel that. And it's weird to think, like, I have done everything in both 4 and 5, Persona-wise, right? Mm-hmm. But only one of them gives me the good feel, and the other is, like, when I was done with it, like, replaying the first 12 hours of P5 is the good feel, and then after that, it's like...
Right.
And then, like... But all of P4 continues to have the good feel, and I don't know why. It is like a familiarity, maybe it's like a love, because we've said before that P4 is like my favorite video game.
It's like a familiarity combined with, like augmented by the other things that make P4 feel good.
Right. The fact that it's perfect.
Right. The fact that the game, the combat is really good, the fact that the story is really good, the music is really good. The feedback when you get the level up is good.
The setting, and that goes back to, like, setting-wise as well, is, like, something about Persona 4's setting appeals more so than Persona 5's. And so once I was done with P5, it was like, oh, like, yeah, Young Jaya is pretty cozy, but other parts of it are like, this is kind of neat. But then, like, every aspect of 4 is cozy to me.
Right.
Like, P4 is like a game you kind of cuddle up with and play by the fire.
Right, yeah.
If I had a fireplace, I would play Persona 4 by that fireplace.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, like, I don't know. It's a weird... That's we're getting back into that hard to place. But Persona 4 has it. It's that familiarity. It's the same feeling you get with Chrono Trigger.
Yeah,
damn it.
Yeah, where it's just like, oh man, I know this game back and front. It's like going to visit an old friend, or like visiting a place that you're going back to your old elementary school, kind of, you know?
Yeah, it's that weird kind of comforting, like putting on a nice comfy jacket feeling.
Like not necessarily nostalgia, but just like that familiarity, you know?
Yeah. And it isn't nostalgia. I mean, it can kind of be that nostalgic feeling that first time you played Chrono Trigger. I keep wanting to say Cross, it just feels more natural to me. Chrono Trigger. And P4 is like, the first time you ever fire that game up, you kind of get those feelings of like, oh, like the first time you ever played this game. But there's something more to it too. It's like going back to an old house or going someplace you've just been so many times before, and you feel like you know your way around it. You know, it's kind of like home.
Yeah.
Like, you know your way around it. You don't need to be navigated. If it's a place you're happy in, you don't need anybody to tell you how to get from point A to point B. You're just kind of happy to be there. And so when you play it again, you're reliving that happiness of being there, and you want to keep playing it to kind of keep feeling that feeling.
It's
which
like
is super nebulous.
I mean, like, it's also kind of like a favorite restaurant, you know? Like, maybe it's not the restaurant you've had the best food ever, but it's your favorite restaurant. You know, all this like playability stuff really goes back to that thing we kind of talk about a lot, where it's like the difference between the best thing and your favorite thing.
Yeah,
you know?
There's a huge difference between the best meal you've ever eaten in your entire life and your favorite food.
Right. Like,
you know?
And, you know, when we talk about, like, we do our January episode where we talk about our top 5 games of the year, that, again, boils down to the fact that it's not the best game, but it's the one we had the most fun playing with right now.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And it's that familiarity that breeds comfort.
Yeah, and so it's like, that's playability. Like, that's just this whole the whole idea of playability is this whole nebulous thing beyond quality of the product.
Right.
And
so
it changes wildly from person to person. You know, there are people who spend thousands upon thousands of hours in MMORPGs that you and I would never touch, you know?
No, absolutely.
Because
there are people who play like thousands of hours of EVE Online, and I will never play Spreadsheet Simulator.
Right.
You know?
But they get the good back of the brain tingle from those numbers and that Excel document.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so different. That, I mean, again, there are people who have played hundreds of hours of Skyrim but can't stand Fallout 4.
Right.
You know? Same thing.
And
like, it's hard to articulate. It's so different between each person.
Right. It just, you know, whether your base skill with the game, whether or you know what genres you like, can define that. But like nothing can really define what your playability, what you consider playable. You know.
Right.
You could sit someone down. I mean, like, far be it for me to defend them, but this is the difference between competitive Melee players and, like, regular Smash players. They just find Melee to be way more playable than any other Smash game, even though you can look at them and it's like, dude, this has 74 fighters in it. It's got literally everything crammed into one game. They're like, no, I need my CRTV and my Broken Wave Bird.
Because make no mistake, Melee players are still degenerates.
Yeah, they're still the worst, but I can understand what they're coming from.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it is such a like case by case thing, and it's hard to even put into words, but we have kind of sorted it out. So to recap, Ben, it has to be like not too involved, like not too much responsibility, easy to hop into, an appealing setting, a high degree of interactivity, like making like your mark on the world in some way, or you're kind of a part of the world,
right,
in a noticeable way. Like I said, easy to hop into, familiarity. What else did we say?
It's like games that are games that don't necessarily have to be long, but like, or games that aren't long but you can play them a long time, you know?
Right, yeah. Games that, you can play them for 20 minutes or 20 hours and both feel pretty good.
Right.
Like, yeah. So that's kind of like a general guidelines.
Yeah, it's just like, that's like what this is, like this whole concept of video games that exists that people probably don't even really think about it, you know?
Yeah.
But like, oh my god, I completely forgot about one that also has really good playability for me, which is the Layton series, Professor Layton series.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing that I never really got into, but I'm bad at puzzle games.
But it's like, I solved the puzzle, and it gave me the good tingle in the back of my brain because I figured out the challenge, and I figured it out, and I pressed the right button.
But you know, I get it. But at the same time, I'm also like, I think of like Ace Attorney, which are games I very rarely replay. Mm-hmm. Despite really liking the Ace Attorney franchise as a whole, like, I guess because it is kind of a sense of just that, like, no new discovery stuff.
Yeah, you're not like getting anything new by replaying it, whereas like any other like game with a good amount of playability is like, well, you can always get something new out of it.
Right.
Whether it's a level up, or you find a new weapon, or you find a new little area to explore. It's just, or in the case of like a fighting game or a race or like a Mario Kart or something, where it's like, I figured out how to do this technique.
Yeah. Or I found a shortcut, or I did, any number of things. Mm-hmm. But things like, Ace Attorney kind of always play out the same way, despite the fact that I think they're very good video games.
Right.
Yeah. So, but the Layton series is different too. I mean, it's not a series I'm like really familiar with,
right?
But it's not kind of the same way as like Ace Attorney,
right? It's way more of a puzzle, like a series of puzzles, than it is like a linear visual novel mystery you're solving.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
but
go ahead.
But that's just like, it's fun to think about, like, when you're kind of like thinking about, you're kind of like trying to analyze a game, like what we do here, where it's like, the idea of playability versus overall quality is something that kind of people don't really consider a lot, even though they experience it constantly. They probably don't really take a moment to like think about why they're playing the game they enjoy,
Yeah. Like, why, if you have a favorite, I mean, everybody has a favorite video game, but if you have a video game that you've like poured like an unreasonable amount of time into, like, why? Like, kind of sit down, and I mean, you really don't need to think about it.
No.
But it is kind of fun to sit down and try and puzzle it out and try to figure it out, because this did all spawn from, why am I still playing Fallout 4?
It spawned from, like, 76. Why is 76 being reviled so much, whereas a lot of people still like Fallout 4 a lot?
Despite its myriad flaws, like, why do I still like and appreciate Fallout 4? Despite the fact that I don't think it's that good of a Fallout game, I have never put this much time into 3 in New Vegas as I've put into 4.
Right.
Like why? Like, I've been, like, it's kind of like, I was supposed to watch the Venture Brothers, and instead I was like, I had like a weird itch to play Fallout, and it just kind of ate my life, and I dragged you into this hellhole with me. I apologize.
No, it's fine, because, I mean, like, I'm also enjoying my time playing it.
And you wonder, like, why? This is where this whole conversation has come from, was, like, we were playing it, and we were just like, why do we love this game so much, despite it not being, like, great? It's just kind of good.
Yeah, but it feels good to us to play it. And I think what this kind of also boils, like, what this kind of helps for is, have you ever had the thing where, like, and this isn't necessarily just for video games, but it can also be for, like, movies or for books or for series or whatever, where it's like you see a thing where it's like, or like a critique of it,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you kind of read through it and you're like completely confused, like, where the hell is this person coming from?
Right.
And it's like, or it's like you kind of either pick up like, okay, well, they're totally right, but I don't know, I still like it.
Yeah.
That's because it has the good playability for you.
There is something in that game. If you can look, like, again, last time I'll reference Joe Anderson for the night. I have listened to all 577 hours of his critique of Fallout 4. And he's right.
Yeah.
Like, every bit of it. That plot is stupid. It has a really simple gameplay loop. Like, it's just a really simple, badly written game that never dives too deep into mechanics that could be truly great. He's right, but even he was like, I like Fallout 4 despite all of these problems.
Right?
Like, all of its stupidness, there's just something there.
If you've ever played a game and then, like, looked at critiques of that game, and those critiques and those problems just bounced off you. That game just has really high playability for you.
You know, I'm not going to call you stupid unless you like Exilia 2. Then I will. But, you know... like...
What? Like... It's kind of comforting, in a way, you know?
Yeah! I think part of it is that, like... I was really thinking about this before we went into this. I think part of it is that... this is going to sound insane. I think some of the most playable video games are the most mediocre ones.
I mean that boils down to what you used to call them junk food.
They are, because I was thinking about, like, what games have I put, like, a really unreasonable amount of time into? Like... Of all of the many video games I've played in my life, and I've played a lot, like, the games that I kind of keep going back to, the ones that I can just pick up and play, always seem to be, like, the more middling ones.
The 7 out of 10s.
The 7 out of 10s. Like, Fallout, like, the games I've put the most time into, just off the top of my head, are Persona 4, which is an actual great video game, so it doesn't count. But then there's Fallout 4. I played an absurd amount of Far Cry 4. There's a lot of 4s in this list, I'm realizing. I played a ton of Fable 2. And then the other game I think I put, like, a really stupid amount of time into is, again, with the 4s, Devil May Cry 4. Which is, like... is, like, a really good video game. But is also, like... easily, like, the 7 to 8 out of 10 out of the series because of, like, all of its other, like, terrible boss design and level design problems. Like, it's almost like if your game is just kind of okay, but with, like, some pretty fun systems into it, it's almost like there's no pressure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is, where it's like, you know, like... You can just enjoy that game, and there's no pressure for you to, like, see the depth of it.
To see the art in it. Like, you're not looking for the art in fucking Far Cry 4. You're just driving an ATV around, like, fictionalized Nepal, and you're having a good old fucking time the whole time.
You know, you're not, like... When you're playing, like, Nier Automata, where it's like you kind of have to go in there with your mind laser focused on the game.
Right, you gotta pay attention to, like, the plot and stuff.
But you don't gotta do that with DMC4, you can just play it.
You can just go into the Bloody Palace and fuck around and lose, and then go play the game and just combo all day. Like, you don't have to think. And
then Nero will do a taunt and he will say something cool and you will go, that's rad.
And then you'll sometimes you'll, like, pull off a max act and you're like, I'm a badass. And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, sometimes all you need is to play the game and to win and to do the thing.
And feel comfy.
Yeah.
That's it.
It reminds me of whenever, like, when we saw those trailers for, like, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker and everyone was like, this is the comfiest game to ever exist.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, like, that doesn't mean it'll be a good game, but you'll feel good playing it.
You'll feel comfy.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I don't remember. Do you remember when Ego Raptor did his Castlevania video? And he talked about how, like, the later Castlevanias, he doesn't like them because, like, they're kind of handholdy and they kind of have like this weird leveling up and they have too many mechanics, whereas he likes the straightforward, like your movements are limited and hindered, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, but it's like, yeah, but my number went up. And
my number went and
I
got
can
big.
equip a sword or an axe, and that has different moves attached to it.
And then those numbers will be different too.
And when I hit the enemy, it makes a good sound. It's like I don't know if you've seen it, because like I'm on the fighters subreddit, the DBZ fighter subreddit,
right?
And everyone hates Bardock,
right?
Because Bardock is really easy to use and he has a very strong auto combo,
right?
But ask anyone who hates Bardock what they think of Bardock's level 3, and they'll go, "Oh, it's the raddest shit in the world."
Yeah.
Because he does a cool thing with his level 3, and it's like, alright, well, you know what? That's cool. That's still really cool. And it feels good.
Rad. It feels good.
Like,
so,
have you ever done a thing in a game that is not effective, but it makes you feel good to do it anyway? That's playability.
That's playability. You did it. You boiled it down to its core concept.
Hey, you ever equipped a piece of armor on your character because it looked better than the armor that has like 10 times more defense? That's playability, baby.
We did it.
We figured it out. Playability to its bare essentials is whether it makes you feel good, not necessarily whether it's a good part of the game, but if doing it makes you personally feel good,
then you are valid and that game is playable.
Yes. Ultimately, everyone who plays video games is valid, except for Melee players.
And Exilia 2 fans. The two least valid groups of people on the internet. Oh god, I think that's a good note to end it on, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
I did not think we would get an hour and 30 minutes out of this topic, but I'm proud of us.
I'm glad, because like it's a cool thing to like think about, you know? It's one of those things where like you can really think about it for a long time, but it's not like a challenging, like, we want you to challenge yourself with this thought experiment. It's like, hey, think about why you like games that you kind of know aren't very good.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is like people, this is like a tangent, so I guess we're not done yet.
We're not
but Melee players and Exilia 2 fans are still not valid. Like, here's the other thing that kind of cheeses me off about some Fallout 4 fans, and like people who love bad video games. They're like, well, it's not bad because I had fun with it. No, it's still like not a good entry into the Fallout series, and they should still aim to do better. Like, people who are saying right now that they're really enjoying Fallout 76. I mean, that's cool, but wouldn't you rather be playing the version of this game that, like, works and was, like, really good and had, like, quests and memorable characters and stuff? Like, you can enjoy a game that is maybe not great and still acknowledge that maybe it's got a couple flaws and they should do better next time. Like, you know?
Right. The important thing also is I kind of had this revelation where it's like, it's okay to not care about flaws, but you still have to acknowledge that they're flaws.
That they exist.
Right.
Yeah, you can't just be like, well, I don't mind. Well, yeah, but wouldn't you rather it be better?
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, wouldn't you not rather it be, like, a better... Like, yeah, I would much rather, as much as I love Fallout 4, yes, I would much rather have the good version of Fallout 4.
I would rather have I would rather have the Fallout 4 where the story doesn't suck. But, that being said...
But I don't.
I don't care about the story that much.
It's not really why I'm playing this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're done. We have to be done.
All right. So thank you to Broke Free Fuse Tobacco Music. You can follow us on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. And if you also want to hear about games that have good game feel and good playability, you can listen to some other people play some other games, like Sarah's other podcast.
Nice. Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of cool friends sit around and we play tabletop games together. We try out different systems. We have a lot of fun. Right now we're playing Blades in the Dark. It's kind of like a cool 1800s stealth system thing. It's like playing Thief, but like as a tabletop game. It rules. You should come check us out. We're at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there.
All right, that'll do it for us.
Fuck Fallout 76.
Fuck Fallout 76 and fuck Melee players and Zillia 2 fans. You are not valid.
You're not valid, damn it. You're not. And neither is Pete Hines. The list of like people who are like really invalid in video games starts at number 3 is Pete Hines. And then it's Xillia 2 fans, and then it's Melee players. None of you. You're all the worst.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.